Did you know that nearly 20% of married people admit to keeping major secrets from their spouse? Sometimes those secrets are harmless, but other times they shatter everything. Emma thought she had the perfect marriage until one message changed everything. And trust me, by the end of this story, you might think twice before saying, I do. From the outside, Emma and Daniel's relationship looked flawless. Friends envied them, strangers admired them, and their Instagram page was a highlight reel of romantic getaways, candlelit dinners, and perfectly posed couple goals snapshots. If anyone had asked Emma a year ago if she believed in soulmates, she would have laughed, but Daniel had changed all that. They met at a mutual friend's engagement party, a glittering affair with champagne flutes and rose petals scattered across the floor. Emma, an ambitious marketing manager, had no intention of falling for anyone. Love, in her mind, was an overrated distraction. But then, Daniel appeared, charming, attentive, and disarmingly handsome. He swept her off her feet with his quiet confidence. Unlike the other men she'd dated, he seemed genuinely interested in her ambitions, her dreams. Within months, they were inseparable. Every conversation was effortless. Every touch felt electric. And when he proposed under a canopy of stars on a private beach, Emma thought, this is it. But that was before the cracks began to show. The wedding was grand, too grand, if Emma was honest. Daniel insisted on a destination event, an opulent five-star resort in Santorini. It's once in a lifetime, he said, brushing off her concerns about the cost. What was another $50,000 when it was their happily ever after? And for a while it was, until it wasn't. The first warning sign came 6 months into their marriage. Small, almost invisible, but there. It started with the little things. Daniel's late nights became more frequent. At first, he blamed work. New responsibilities, he said. She tried to be supportive, reminding herself that this was just a phase. But soon his warmth faded. Conversations that once flowed naturally became strained, punctuated by distracted glances at his phone. Emma brushed it off. Marriage was supposed to be an adjustment, wasn't it? She convinced herself that love, real love, could survive anything. And then she found the message. It was a Sunday afternoon. Daniel had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. Emma wasn't the snooping type. At least, she never had been. But the screen lit up with a message that froze her blood. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Her heart pounded in her chest. The sender's name was just an initial, A. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. When Daniel emerged from the bathroom, his face lit up with that easy, disarming smile. Hey, babe, what's wrong? Emma's hands trembled as she held up the phone. Who's A? His smile faltered. What are you doing with my phone? That's not an answer. He sighed, irritated, as if she were the one in the wrong. It's nothing, just a work thing. A lie. She knew it in her bones. That night, Emma lay awake while Daniel slept soundly beside her. Every whisper of doubt she'd buried came crashing back. Had she been blind? Or just desperate to believe that love meant forever? She thought of the promises they had made, for better or worse. But what happens when worse comes faster than anyone expects? Emma wasn't sure if she wanted to find out. And in the shadows of their perfect life, something darker was waiting, ready to unravel everything she thought she knew about marriage. And this was only the beginning. What do you think Emma should do next? Confront him? Walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments. They say trust is the foundation of any marriage. But what happens when that foundation cracks? Emma had always believed that love could overcome anything until she uncovered a secret that made her question everything. And if you think one message was bad, just wait until you hear what she finds next. For the next week, Emma tried to convince herself that the message was harmless. Maybe Daniel was telling the truth. Maybe it really was just a work thing. People send flirty messages all the time without meaning it, right? But deep down, the seed of doubt had already been planted, and it was growing. At first, she kept her suspicions to herself. She smiled through dinner dates, laughed at his jokes, and pretended everything was fine. But her mind wouldn't stop racing. She started noticing things she'd never questioned before. The way he turned his phone face down during meals, the sudden business trips, the faint scent of perfume that wasn't hers lingering on his jacket. And then the password changed. Daniel had never been secretive with his devices before. In fact, he used to leave his phone unlocked without a second thought. But one night, when Emma casually reached for it to check the time, the lock screen flashed back at her, a password she didn't know. Her stomach twisted. "Since when do you lock your phone?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. Daniel didn't look up from his laptop. "Work's been cracking down on privacy. It's nothing personal." Nothing personal. Emma wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to, but her gut told her otherwise. That's when she did something she never thought she'd do. One night, while Daniel was asleep, Emma quietly slipped out of bed and padded over to his jacket draped on the chair. With trembling fingers, she searched the pockets until she found his wallet. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. Proof, maybe. Something solid to confirm that her fears weren't just in her head. At first, there was nothing unusual: credit cards, receipts, a membership card to his gym. But then, tucked behind his driver's license, she found a folded note. For words, scribbled in neat handwriting. "I miss you already." No name, no date. Just those words, intimate and damning. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the note. It felt like the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. The message on his phone could have been explained away. But this was real. This was proof. For a moment, she stood frozen, torn between confronting him immediately and pretending she never saw it. But something inside her snapped. She wasn't going to be the wife who looked the other way. The next morning, she confronted him. Emma held up the note, her voice trembling. "What is this, Daniel?" His expression shifted, surprise first, then something colder. For a heartbeat, he didn't speak. "Where did you get that?" "Don't play dumb," she snapped, her anger rising. "Who is she?" Daniel's jaw tightened, and for the first time in their marriage, she saw something in his eyes she didn't recognize: contempt. "You're overreacting," he said flatly. "It's nothing. Just a client being too friendly." "A client?" Emma laughed bitterly. "Do your clients usually tell you they miss you?" He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose like she was exhausting him. "You're making something out of nothing, Emma. If you don't trust me, maybe that's your problem." The words hit her like a slap. Just like that, he flipped the blame, turning her suspicions into insecurities. And worse, she could feel herself slipping into the trap of wanting to believe him. But later that day, something shattered the illusion for good. Emma had a lunch meeting across town and took a route she didn't normally drive. As she waited at a red light, a familiar figure caught her. Daniel. Except he wasn't at work, and he wasn't alone. He stood on the sidewalk, laughing with a woman she didn't recognize. She was younger, mid-20s, with sleek hair and a figure that turned heads. As Emma watched, frozen in disbelief, Daniel leaned in and brushed a kiss against the woman's temple. It wasn't just friendly. Her stomach churned as the light turned green. She wanted to slam the brakes, to confront him right there in the street. But instead, she drove on, hands shaking on the wheel. By the time she got home, she wasn't just heartbroken. She was furious. If marriage meant betrayal and lies behind closed doors, maybe it was time to question everything she thought she wanted. And Daniel had no idea what was coming next. What if everything you believed about love was a lie? Emma thought marriage meant trust, but after catching Daniel with another woman, she realized some vows are easier to break than to keep. And what she's about to uncover, it's darker than she ever imagined. Emma didn't confront Daniel that night. Not yet. Instead, she did something smarter. She prepared. In the days following the sidewalk betrayal, she became a ghost in her own marriage, silent, watchful, calculating. Gone was the woman who trusted without question. In her place was someone sharper, stronger. If Daniel thought he could play her for a fool, he was wrong. And she was about to prove it. Her first move was subtle. Emma knew Daniel's habits better than anyone. So when he mentioned working late on Thursday, she didn't argue. Instead, she kissed him goodbye and smiled, just like any trusting wife would. But when the clock struck 8 p.m., she wasn't at home waiting. She was parked outside his office building, hidden beneath the shadows of a dim streetlight. Hours passed. No sign of him. By 10 p.m., her patience paid off. A A sleek black car pulled up, and there he was, Daniel, stepping out in his tailored suit, but he wasn't alone. The same woman from before slid out beside him, their laughter drifting through the night air like poison. Emma's heart pounded as she grabbed her phone. With steady hands, she snapped photo after photo, undeniable proof. If he wanted to lie, she'd make sure the truth had the final word. But what happened next sent a chill down her spine. Daniel opened the passenger door, his hand brushing the woman's lower back in a way that made Emma's stomach twist. But when the woman turned, Emma's breath hitched. She knew her, not as a stranger, not as some nameless affair. It was Sophie, Emma's former best friend. For a moment, the world tilted. Sophie, the same woman who had stood beside Emma as a bridesmaid on her wedding day. The same friend who had promised to always have her back. And now, she was the one stealing Emma's husband. The betrayal cut deeper than words. Emma sat frozen as they drove away, leaving her behind with nothing but the cold sting of reality. But if they thought she'd crumble, they didn't know her at all. Because Emma wasn't the kind of woman to fall apart quietly. By the next morning, Emma had a plan. She spent hours gathering every piece of evidence. Photos, messages, even credit card statements showing lavish dinners she hadn't been invited to. She wasn't just preparing to confront him. She was preparing to destroy him. And when she did, she'd make sure he never saw it coming. That evening, she played her role perfectly. When Daniel came home, she greeted him with a warm smile and his favorite dinner. He relaxed, completely unaware of the storm brewing right under his nose. "So," she said sweetly, pouring him a glass of wine. "How was work?" He didn't even flinch. "Busy as usual." "Lie." Emma's fingers itched to slam the evidence in front of him, to watch his face twist with panic. But no, that would be too easy, and Emma was done making things easy for him. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice soft. I was thinking maybe we should go away, just the two of us." His eyes widened, surprise flickering across his face. "Really? Really?" And as she smiled, she imagined the moment when everything would fall apart for him. Because the trip wasn't about saving their marriage. It was about ending it, on her terms. And when it was over, he'd have nothing left. Would you stay and fight, or walk away? Drop your thoughts below. What if you had the power to turn betrayal into the ultimate revenge? Emma's marriage was built on lies, but now, she's ready to tear it all down. And when she springs her trap, Daniel won't know what hit him. Emma's plan needed to be flawless. No loose ends. No second chances. For days, she worked quietly, gathering everything she needed. Bank records, copies of their shared investments, even the deed to their home, proof that her name alone was on it. If Daniel wanted to lie and cheat, she'd make sure he paid for it. And the best part? He still had no idea. Her opportunity came sooner than she expected. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Daniel's phone buzzed. He was in the shower, so Emma picked it up casually. But when she saw the name on the screen, her blood ran cold. "Sophie." Without hesitation, she swiped the message open. "I can't wait for next weekend. Just you and me, babe. She'll never know." Red heart. Emma's heart pounded. Next weekend. The same weekend, she had suggested their romantic getaway. He wasn't just lying. He was planning to meet his mistress while pretending to work. A slow, dangerous smile crept across her face. If he thought he could play her, he was about to learn the hard way. No one outplays Emma. By the time Daniel emerged from the shower, Emma was calm. Too calm. She slipped into his arms, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "I booked us a cabin by the lake next weekend. Just you and me." Daniel hesitated, a flicker of panic in his eyes, but he covered it quickly. "That sounds perfect, babe." Liar. But he had no idea that this trip would be his undoing. The following week, Emma executed every detail. She reached out to a lawyer, one specializing in infidelity divorces. With the evidence she had, the lawyer assured her that Daniel wouldn't just lose the house. He'd lose everything. And while he planned his secret weekend with Sophie, Emma planned something better, exposing the truth in the most humiliating way possible. When Friday arrived, Daniel was all smiles as they packed their bags. Emma played the part perfectly, loving, trusting, the perfect wife. But hidden in her suitcase were two things that would change everything. A voice recorder, to capture his confession. An envelope filled with divorce papers. By the time the weekend was over, Daniel would be out of her life for good. The cabin was beautiful, nestled on the edge of a secluded lake, far from the chaos of the city. That night, as they sat by the fire, Emma poured them both a glass of wine. "Here's to us," she said softly, clinking her glass against his. Daniel smiled, but she noticed how his phone never left his side, how his eyes darted toward it when he thought she wasn't looking. Patience, she reminded herself. Let him dig his own grave. As the night deepened, Emma turned the conversation toward their relationship. "Do you ever think about the beginning?" she asked, her voice smooth. "When we were so in love, nothing else mattered?" Daniel chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Of course, babe. Those were the best days." "Liar." Emma tilted her head, her heart pounding. "Do you still love me?" There was a pause, just long enough to make her blood run cold. "Of course," he said too quickly. And that's when she struck. She reached into her bag and pulled out the note from Sophie, the one she had found hidden in his wallet. She placed it on the table between them, watching his face drain of color. "What's this, Daniel?" His jaw tightened. "Emma, I can explain." "No," she cut him off, her voice sharp. "You don't get to explain. Not after everything." She pulled out the voice recorder next, setting it beside the note. "I've been recording this entire conversation," she said coldly. "And guess what? I've already spoken to a lawyer." Daniel's mask shattered. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Emma stood up, her heart thundering in her chest. She pulled the divorce papers from the envelope and tossed them into his lap. "You want to cheat? Fine. But you're not taking me down with you. Sign these, or I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." For the first time, Daniel looked scared. "Emma, please, don't do this." But his pleas meant nothing now, because Emma wasn't the naive wife he thought she was. She was done being his fool. And when she walked out of that cabin the next morning, she left him with nothing but the ruins of the life he destroyed. Would you have walked away or fought back? What if walking away wasn't enough? Emma exposed Daniel's lies, but now she's about to deliver the final blow. And when she's finished, he'll lose far more than just his marriage. Emma didn't just want freedom, she wanted justice. Leaving the cabin should have felt like the end. She had the confession, the evidence, and the upper hand. But as she drove back to the city, her mind burned with one thought. He deserved to lose everything. Daniel hadn't just broken their vows. He had shattered her trust, stolen years of her life, and laughed behind her back. Letting him walk away, quietly? Not a chance. By Monday morning, Emma was a woman on a mission. Her first move? Sophie's fiancé. Sophie might have been sneaking around with Daniel, but Emma remembered one key detail. Sophie was engaged. A quick search through social media led her straight to him, a polished, successful investment banker named Ryan. And if he didn't know the truth yet, Emma was happy to change that. She sent him an anonymous email, complete with time-stamped photos of Daniel and Sophie. Within minutes, her phone buzzed with a response. "Who are you? And how do you know this?" Emma smiled coldly. "A friend. Check their phones if you need proof. You deserve better." And just like that, she lit the first match. Her second move was even bolder. Emma knew Daniel's career meant everything to him. As a rising executive at one of the city's top firms, his image was pristine. But what would his bosses think if they found out he was using company resources to fund his affair? A quick call to an old acquaintance in the firm's HR department did the trick. She didn't even need to lie. She simply forwarded the evidence she'd gathered. Within hours, the news was circulating through the office like wildfire. By the end of the day, Daniel's entire career was hanging by a thread. But Emma wasn't finished yet. That evening, she hosted a quiet dinner, just a few close friends. But the guest list included one very important person, Daniel's mother. She had always liked Emma, always said she was the best thing that had ever happened to her son. And Emma? She played the role of the wounded but graceful wife perfectly. When she tearfully revealed Daniel's betrayal, complete with the photos, his mother's face turned pale. "I raised him better than this," she whispered. "I'll speak to him." And when Daniel's own mother turned against him, Emma knew there was no coming back. By the end of the week, Daniel's world had fallen apart. Ryan called off the engagement, publicly humiliating Sophie with a viral post exposing their affair. Daniel lost a major promotion after his bosses learned of his misuse of company funds. And his mother? She cut off financial support, leaving him drowning in legal fees. And Emma? She was finally free. The day Daniel signed the divorce papers was the last time she saw him. He stood in their once shared living room, now stripped of everything that mattered to him. The house was hers. The future was hers. And him? He was just a shadow in her past. "You never loved me," he said bitterly as he scrawled his signature. Emma met his gaze, her voice calm. "I did. But love isn't a license to destroy someone's life." She turned to leave, but at the door she paused. "By the way, Sophie's fiancé says hello." The look on Daniel's face was priceless. And with that, Emma walked away, stronger, wiser, and finally free. 6 months later, Emma stood on a sunlit balcony, sipping champagne. Life after Daniel was sweeter than she imagined. The divorce settlement left her comfortable, but it was more than that. She had herself back. And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, a warm voice behind her made her smile. The voice said, "I never believed in second chances. Until you." She turned to face Ryan. Yes, Sophie's ex-fiancé. They had started as friends, bonded by mutual heartbreak. But somewhere along the way, something deeper grew. "I'm glad you gave us a shot," Emma murmured, her heart full. And as Ryan pulled her close, Emma realized the ultimate truth. Marriage wasn't the problem. Choosing the wrong person was. Do you believe marriage is worth the risk? Or is it better to stay free? Drop your thoughts below and watch our next video for more stories that reveal the truth behind love and betrayal. Like, subscribe, and comment.